Hi everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Performance Cafe. Sorry, let me put my mug down here before I break it. So, welcome to this Wednesday morning. I am all in black, and I am revolting against the fact that in South Africa this morning, in Pretoria where I live, it is cold and it is grey, and it feels like the summer we had just yesterday has been taken away from us. We are getting ready for our seasonal rains, so it's going to be cloudy and icky for a couple of days, but after that we should be fine. So what are we talking about today? Well, we've been talking about the Great Resignation and what companies should have learned from it. And just when we thought the kerfuffle was over about that, next up we now have what they call quiet quitting. And I thought we could spend some time on quiet quitting today and see what it is, how does it impact business, and what can we really do about it? So, firstly, I'd like to let you know that quiet quitting actually has been around for centuries, and TikTok has just given it a name. So, firstly, we can all relax. This is not something to get entirely or worked up about. It is important for us to know, but if we've been working through issues around the Great Resignation, we probably would have quiet quitting sorted. So first up, what is quiet quitting? Well, it's actually doing your job. I know, as strange as it is, it deserved a new name. It's people who come to the office, they do what they are paid to do, they don't start early, they don't leave late, they just do their job. Now, interestingly enough, the whole upheaval about this is, of course, that the best employees add discretionary effort. And that discretionary effort is doing that a little bit more, maybe arriving a little bit earlier, working on a special project a little bit later. Apologies. And what we see with quiet quitting is that we have none of that discretionary effort. Now, interestingly enough, I think the issue around this is that when people just do what they get paid to do, it's actually not the end of the world if they don't have discretionary effort. It just means that they're not going to shine. They're not going to stand out from the rest. So on the one hand, by quiet quitting, people actually are shooting themselves in the foot, because when you quiet quit, you aren't seen as someone who's up to take on a new project, to learn something new. But we must understand that quiet quitting has the same roots as the Great Resignation. And that is that employees remain, and they've just drawn the line. COVID has just helped them draw the line of, I want work-life balance. I want to know that I matter. I want to know that I am respected and that my inputs count in this environment. So, as we've seen before, it's pretty much a case of people leave people. And so we've got to ask ourselves, as managers in organization, as people who set the culture, what are we actually saying to our employees about how important they are to us? Now, it's so interesting because I hate the term human resources, because a resource, and we have seen it in the way that we've dealt with, all kinds of resources in the world, we actually think that this is something that needs to be exploited and exhausted. Look, there's a pocket of hydrogen. It's not about, how long is it going to maintain and how can we stretch it as far as we can. It's like, no, we'll just max it out. It's cheaper than anything else. Let's use that, right? That's what we think when we hear resources. There's a forest. Let's just chop it all down and make furniture and paper out of it. But we don't think about what's the effect of chopping it down. And I think that example leads me back to quiet quitting, is that if a human resource is there for me to just exploit and use up, well, why would that person want to give me more discretionary effort? And so this is where quiet quitting is coming from. Now, on the one hand, I have to ask you to think through this properly. Do you need every person in your business to be at 150%? Or is it okay that there's a quiet quitter? They come in, they do what they're paid to do, so they're not actually doing you any harm. Because if you also only have people at 150%, you're going to have a lot of very contentious environments where everyone is fighting for the piece of cheese. And we've seen what happens in those. People who quiet quit sometimes will have activities outside of work that they find more satisfying, where they find their purpose, their fulfillment. So, for example, a hobby like photography, they may even make a bit of money from it over the weekend, a little side hustle kind of thing. What we don't like about quiet quitting is that means that we don't, as organizations, have people whose purposes align with the purpose of the leadership and the business. So yet again, we've got to ask ourselves, is this something that is good for our business? So when we take a look at how it impacts business, if I pay someone to do a job, they come, they arrive at 8, they leave at 5, they've done their job. Apologies. The impact isn't huge, but it's just not great. Now, I actually ask the question whether quiet quitting is really such a big thing from the perspective that if we take a look at employee engagement numbers, we've known for years that people who are really, really engaged only count for about 16 to 18% of the business. So then there's a huge amount of people that are in the quiet quitter category. They've always been, because they've just arrived, they do their job, but they're not going to take the business forward. They're not going to help it leap forward. And then there are people who are entirely disengaged and actually do a lot of damage to business. And they, again, are here, I think, around the 20% at the last research. We normally check the Gallup poll is quite good to show us those numbers. So when we take a look about how it impacts business and what you can do as a manager, as a leader, as an owner of a business, well, it's entirely up to you. If you don't need people to have purpose in your business, if you don't want the purposes to align, if you don't want people who excel because they personally buy into the organization and what it does, then quiet quitting is not an issue for you. You're happy that they arrive at 8, leave at 5, and that's that. What we see, though, is in organizations where people want passion, where they want drive, where they want a little bit more. That is where we see quiet quitting being the issue. Now, the thing about it is, and I think this is a gap that people don't sometimes see, and it's something that I'm quite aware of as a business owner myself. My business Perform Forward is my one thing, right? I'm passionate about it. It's how I fulfill my purpose to provide service back into the world, to make sure that people thrive in business, because I believe that thriving people make thriving businesses, make thriving societies. And who doesn't want their society to thrive? Imagine if we all could be like Denmark, but that's a book review for another day. So it's about understanding that your business, your baby, is your one thing. And if we take a look at your wheel of life when it comes to family, work, community, hobbies, sport, whatever the case may be, that business might be like 3/4 of that pie for you. For your employee, they have a whole life, and that's why they want work-life balance. And what is in it for them to broaden the slice of the pie that your business takes in their life? Remember, you're paying them a certain amount for them to do a certain job. If you want to give them more, what is the reward that they are working for? Now, the easy one is people either go, oh, I'll just pay them more, or I don't have money to pay them more. It's not about pay. I want to bring us back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where we say that the physiological needs and the security needs are only the first 2 levels, right? Let's assume that the 8-hour day and being paid for that is enough. So therefore, we're assuming that your pay grades are fair, or what you pay people are fair. Then there are other things that people look at. The first one is love and belonging. And we know this is important. Otherwise, we wouldn't spend thousands as businesses doing onboarding programs, interviewing people for our business, but making sure that they're interviewed by members of the team and other business members as well, to make sure that they will belong. This is why we define cultures, so that we can say, this is how we act, so that we work in a similar way, we make decisions in the same way, and we think and feel the same way, right? It's because we want to create belonging. We want to create the structure in which people belong. Next up, we want people to be supported, their self-esteem, what they say. They want to know they're making an impact. And so when it comes to discretionary work and discretionary effort, when someone goes out of the normal work routine to provide a little bit more, what's the response that they get in your business? Is it, oh, well, they've done it once, so we're going to make them do it again? Or is it, thank you, I saw you went over and above, and I appreciate the effort? This is so important, because it doesn't help that we just throw money at people, because they use money to numb the pain of having to work too hard in an environment that they're not appreciated and where they don't belong. So instead of throwing money, throw acknowledgement. If you don't know how to do that, lovely little book by Chapman and White is The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. That is a fabulous place to start. And then also, if you want to take a look at maybe assessments, Enneagram assessments, strengths assessments, because then you get to know people in your organization. And I've seen, using both of those, I've seen how it has strengthened relationships and helped people or helped leaders to invest in their teams, so that they knew when that person was quiet quitting, so they knew what the motivation was for that person quiet quitting, so that the business could address it in a very positive way. So I hope you've enjoyed this little episode on quiet quitting. I hope that if you are a leader, if you are a manager, or if you just own a business, that you have found a couple of nuggets on how to decide if quiet quitting is the way you want to have people to go in your organization, what you can do about it to light that little fire. And please feel free to reach out to me for any of the tools that I've discussed in this session. And so I see we have no comments today and no questions. So that is all from me. And I hope that you have a very productive week where you will thrive and those around you will thrive, so we can all thrive. And until next time, I'll see you at the Performance Cafe.